Good morning, everybody. This is Lisa in Connecticut, Connecticut Worms and Gardens. Many of you have reached out to me because you noticed I hadn't posted anything in a while, and I want to thank you for those of you who did. I had to have my 8th spinal surgery. This one was not planned, was unexpected, and unfortunately didn't fully resolve the problem, so there will be another. And I've been unable to do pretty much anything, and while recovering, I then got sick. You don't need to hear the details. Anyway, the result of that is my worm bins, many but not all, of which you see here, have not been fed, watered, or checked on in the last 7 weeks. They are dry, crumbly, quite possibly absent of life. I don't know. I had somebody do me the favor of bring them from my basement and put them on the floor here in my dining room because I can't do the stairs yet. And I'm going to check on them. Now, obviously, if I were to do an in-depth check on all the bins you see here, some which are on top of one another, the video would be way too long. So I'm going to do just a quick peek in some of them to show you what happens when you don't tend to a worm bin in 2 months. And what I see is what you're going to see. So if they are dead, you will see that. If they manage to survive, you will see that. I know there is zero moisture in any of these bins. So if the worms are alive, they are going to be shriveled up and in really bad shape. So let me reorient the camera, get down to a level where I can show you, and let's take a peek. One thing I won't be able to do in this video is show any feeding or watering, because of course there's far too many bins involved. And that'll have to be another video for each bin. So anyway, what we're looking at here together, this is the top of the experimental Lumbricus rubellus bin. These are the wild worms that are actually considered an earthworm, not a redworm, but they have proven to be very beneficial to composting. And prior to me going offline for a while, I had loaded a bin up with a bunch of yard waste, a lot of kitchen waste, and a couple handfuls of sand in an attempt to see what these guys could do. Now, I am very curious. Now, as you can see, this is dry. This is just like dust. But it's also finished. At least it looks to me. Now, one of the things I had suspected when I filled this bin in the outside was that in addition to bringing in some worms, I had brought in a bunch of cocoons. I suspected some of the cocoons might be that of the invasive jumping worm. So by now, if the worms are alive, they would have hatched and they would be in here if that was the case. So I am seeing life. That's a good thing. If there's life, then there can be more life. I don't expect to find cocoons. I don't expect to find babies in any of these bins because they've just been far too long ignored. Now, this bin was heavy in bark and wood. Look at this. And this bin is actually a little bit moist at the bottom. They're not completely dried out and lifeless. I'm not seeing I'm not seeing cocoons. There's a piece of wood there. I'm not seeing cocoons. Of course, I've only dug my hand in one spot, but I am seeing worms. And I think, for those who are familiar with the German method of gardening known as Hugelkultur, Hugelkulture. It is a gardening method where you layer logs, preferably decaying, straw, chips, and then soil. And the idea or the concept is that the logs at the bottom get saturated with moisture, and that attracts insects of all kind, and the logs get soaked with the moisture, and it slow releases, and you really don't have to water your garden. And I think that's what we're seeing here, why this bin isn't completely dried out and why these worms are alive, is there was so much pieces of decaying wood from outside in here that it kept them alive, and for that I am very grateful. Now, I'm not seeing, of course, any signs of food. I see a couple of sticks, and I don't see nearly as many worms as there was, but if there's some, which of course there are, I'm wondering if they're not all hunkered in one moist spot. Okay, here we go. Here's a whole bunch. This is good. This is a really good sign. I'm very pleased. They do definitely look shriveled up. Of course, they're out of food. They haven't had any attention, any maintenance, or any new food. And you can tell by the color of this castings that I probably added a little too much sand, and that's okay. This was an experiment. I didn't expect to have to need surgery while it was happening, but life happens, and this is a good way, or this is a good example of when life happens. What happens to your worms? You know, what do they go through? What do they experience? So we know about these guys. I want to move on to another bin, which, I think when I had these bins carried upstairs, the pieces of cardboard got swapped. The person who moved them up for me was not familiar with worms or how they were marked. So, but I'm going to be able to tell. Now this, obviously, there's cardboard on the top. It is dry. It is pathetic. And honestly, I don't even know what the heck is in here. So we're about to find out. We are about to find out. So this is definitely, well, it's definitely a worm, but what the heck? I mean, this is it's so dry. These look like they're just some of the reds, but they couldn't even eat the paper on top, which has been on top for at least 2 months. It is so dry and so horrible. But yeah, there are worms alive. Yep, these are some of the Eisenia Andre variety reds. I recognize them. So again, they survived. I wouldn't expect them to be thriving because none of their basic needs are met. It looks like this. You can see the wrapper still. This was a mango, and while there's some in the mango fibers, the bin is too dry for them to even have done much, because they need moisture. They absolutely have to have moisture, and I mean, this is sand. And the ironic thing about all this, folks, is these worms were in my basement while I was away. The main water line, right where the main water where it comes into my house, right at the meter, ruptured. It burst. And I got a flood. But these guys were all up so high, they didn't get affected by it. So although I got a lot of damage, the worms didn't get any benefit of the moisture. So this looks like it was an avocado, and it's funny how the worms kind of poured into here. And it looks like there's still a little bit of moisture in the bottom here. So these guys are going to make a full recovery. I know there's a lot more. They're scattered And they're shriveled, right? They're scattered and they're shriveled because they're in survival mode. And this just goes to show that they will survive. All right, let's just take a look at another one. Now this one here, it's piled up with coffee grounds. I don't exactly know why, but I also see a lot of fruit flies, which I'm not happy about. But it looks like they were trying to at least eat the coffee grounds. And again, this is another bin of reds. So, and you can see how shriveled up they got, but yet there's babies. There's babies, and I don't know what on earth that little thing is, because that's not a worm cocoon. It just fell. Trying to pick up whatever that was. It looks like some sort of, I don't know if this is a piece of grain or if that's an egg case of something, but it's not an egg case from a worm, so it's coming out. So look at this. There's a little spot of moisture, and here these guys are. This is pretty much 2 months. 2 months of being ignored. And they huddled, and they survived. I am so very happy. Of course, all of these bins are 100% complete. There's not going to be any signs of food. What I'm going to have to do to all of them is give them a good dose of moisture and put some food at one end and harvest them all and start over here. So we'll just move on to another one. Now this should be reds. Looks like we have something on the top that molded, but yet there wasn't even enough moisture for the worms to eat the mold. And this is dry and crumbly and really nasty. And you can see how much weight these guys have lost. These were fat and plump. But you know, this is exactly what happens. Look at this, a worm ball out of desperation. This isn't a happy feeding worm ball. This is called, we're trying to survive and we need some moisture, so we're gonna huddle together worm ball. And that's exactly what they do. And that's exactly why they survived. So yeah, I doesn't look as though, I'm sorry, I interrupted myself. I do that a lot. I'm still not quite right here. When worms are shipped, they lose massive amounts of body weight. And it only takes a couple days because they are mostly water, and you can't ship them in water. You can't ship them wet. If you want to ship them wet, that's the best way to have them die. But they do lose their body weight. Now imagine that being 2 months long. That's what these guys, well, I'm sure for the first month they weren't experiencing that hardship. But look at this. We're in a corner. Oh, hold on, my glasses just fell off. Sorry. In a corner, look at this. My worm survived. I am so frickin' happy. Yes, I said frickin'. I can say that one on YouTube. Yep. Some water and some food. This is the driest worm ball I have ever felt. But it's a worm ball. Hooray! I am so happy. Oh my goodness. They did it. They did it. Look at this. Look at this beautifulness. Oh my goodness. Oh boy. I'm gonna have to scrub my hands up good. Yeah, that's okay. But yeah, the rest of this, where the worms aren't balled up, it's just, I mean, these castings are not even quality castings because it went too far. They probably ate them as many times as they could, repeatedly eat them, and then just huddled up. I will use the castings, but certainly it's not optimal. All right, let's just take a little bit more because I don't want this video to get so long that it's not it's not interesting. I'm trying to find, let's see, I'm trying to find in this some of the euros because that's what I'm really most curious about. And I believe this is going to be euros. Now this had a Amazon mailer on it, and it looks like they ate the bottom, and then the inside looks like some of them crawled in under the bubble wrap. Because the whole bottom, this is the top, and this should have been on the bottom too. And inside of it, of course, like you see, this side was paper on the outside and the bubble wrap on the inside. Well, this had paper in its bubble wrap, and it looks like they went between the layers of bubble wrap. I have to figure out how to get them out, but that was purely an act of desperation. And I can see a cocoon here, but I think because these were covered, they might be doing a little bit better. They look a little bit better. This was covered with that bubble wrap material versus just cardboard. So let's take a look and see what it looks like. Well, so again, I'm seeing worms. They're pretty darn small. They're pretty darn unhappy, but they're alive. And that's all that matters, because they will, just like worms that you get shipped that are dried out and puckered up, within a week they're big and fat and thrilled again. And that will be the same thing with these guys. I mean, that's a short, stumpy, sad little euro there, but it's alive. And that's what matters. And this definitely was benefiting from the type of covering that was on it. And I think there's as many euros in here as there was. It doesn't look as though I lost any. And these castings are actually moist. I mean, and there's a cocoon. So after 2 months, there's another cocoon. After 2 months, these castings are still moist. Now, what I started to say before I said that I interrupted myself and corrected myself for interrupting myself, it hasn't been 2 months that they've been totally dry, because it's been 2 months since I checked them. So it's probably been 6 weeks since they ran out of food and water. But I'm seeing a lot of babies. I'm seeing the adults, many of who have, of course, lost weight. And that's okay, because that's not a problem. So I want to look at just one more bin, because the reason I want to is I'm seeing an awful lot of dry paper at the top. And that tells me, I mean, look at this, guys. It's powder. I don't expect to find life in here. This is just beyond. There's nothing. There's nothing. Whoa, I'm seeing life. Holy gosh. Holy gosh, I am seeing life. I am so dang happy. Again, the worms they've lost a lot of body mass. They don't have food. They don't have moisture. They're living in powder with, I mean, you can see as it falls, it's just powder with paper on top. And I don't think these had any cover at all while they were downstairs. I don't know what happened. But they're in here. They're in here, and I'm seeing a lot of babies, and I'm seeing a cocoon. So I'm starting to think that even though I've got some feeding and watering and harvesting to do, let's just move our way down here to one more. I'm scooting my butt along the floor, which is not unusual for me, but this time it's more out of necessity than convenience for me. This one is really low, and I believe what was happening, if my recollection is right, messing with my dog. If my recollection was right, this was a bin of euros that was done, and I harvested it mostly, and there were some in the bottom, and I baited them. And then, of course, things happened, and I never got to harvest. So let's see if these survived. I'm going to be impressed, but I don't expect it because it's so low. Well, I'm seeing life. Do not ask me how, because this is so shallow, and it is so dry. Oh my goodness. But they're alive. They're alive. I would, if I could jump right now, I would. That wouldn't be a good idea. Nor could I. But if I could, I would. I'll do my own little wiggle butt on the floor happy dance after the video. Y'all can join me if you want and leave a comment of your wiggle butt happy dance. Yeah, I haven't lost my sense of humor. So, it looks like under the worst conditions, well, I don't know if it's the worst I've ever exposed worms to. They didn't thrive because they can't, but they survived. All right, I pulled my teeth. I'll check one more, and then that's it, because this video is up to 20 minutes. I'm seeing death here, and that's not good. And that this may be a bin that just got, oh, this is hard, and it's crumbly. And yeah, I'm seeing worm jerky here in the corner. My dog is fascinated at the worms moving. What's in there, Petey? What's in here? What's in here? What's in there? What's in there? She's too funny. Okay, so yeah, this is not looking good in here. Not looking good at all. But let's keep digging. I didn't expect everything to have a good outcome. Actually, I didn't expect it to be as good as it was so far. But there's some alive. Darn it, will you look at that? And there's a cocoon right there. So these ones are definitely in very desperate, dire need of immediate attention. These are reds, and you can see how badly they deteriorated. This is probably the driest yet. But there's life. There's death. But you know, of course, in a situation like this, it was not expected or planned for. You expect to see dead worms, and you hope it's not, there's a cocoon, you hope it's not a total loss. And if it was, I would have to restart. It doesn't look like any of my bins suffered a total loss. But worms die every day in worm bins. I mean, we're seeing it here in this bin particularly because it had no cover and it's just way too dry. But the fact that some of them lived is very impressive to me. But worms die every day. They're born every day. They die every day. That's just, part of the natural life cycle. And had there been moisture in this bin, the dead worms would have been eaten by the live worms, because that's what happens. Live worms and other critters in the bins, whatever they may be. But I'm seeing quite a few cocoons in here, and I'm seeing some dead worms, but I'm also seeing, a lot of cocoons. So they must have done a mass breeding before they started to die. But they're not all dead. They are not all dead, and that makes me happy. I'm sad that the situation happened. I'm sad that it happened to me, but the fact that these guys lived, I don't know if it's possible that the flood in the basement increased the humidity enough. Yeah, see, they're alive. They're barely alive, but they're alive. And I don't know how many out of this bin are going to survive, but there's a lot of cocoons. There's a lot of cocoons. So since this one is right in my grasp, this is the last one, I promise. And if you made it this far, I want to say thank you very, very much. I haven't posted a video in a while. I want to say thank you for maintaining your subscription to my channel in my absence. And thank you for watching this video to give me the watch time, even though this is really long. These ones too, they are alive. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. So I guess I have a lot more, of course, which I'm not going to go through all of them. But what I'm getting from all of this that we've seen together so far is that, with the exception of one bin that I've looked in so far, wow, these castings are nice. Those with cardboard survived. Those with plastic survived a whole lot better, which of course makes sense. But yeah, none of them. Whoa, look at this. Oh, I'm so happy. None of them are a complete loss. Look at this. Oh my goodness. Now, I do not know. This is really moist right here. And these worms look good. This is what they should look like. And I don't know how this happened. I don't have an answer for that, because nothing happened in here that didn't happen anywhere else. Maybe this is a fiber, so this was a weed from my garden. But these guys look great, and that thrills me. But it's also much deeper. I mean, if I level it back out, you can see the level there versus the level there. I mean, these are the same, even though they're on top of each other. Yeah, there's inches more in here. So that the ones that didn't do well, like this one, they were very low. And I know that they were partially harvested and I was baiting them. But these guys look phenomenal. Of course, they don't have any food, but yes, I'm peeking in another one. And I'm seeing the live worms. Okay, well, I am going to turn this video off, get my butt up off the floor, and start the maintenance process. I'm going to start by just giving them all a healthy dose of water. There's a lot more that we haven't gone through, and there's still more in my basement. But this is basically an overview of worms that have been neglected for 2 months. No food, no water, no fluffing, no checking, no maintenance, no changing of top layers of newspaper or grit or plastic wrap. The way they were is the way they had to survive, and they did it. So I say, don't give me a thumbs up. Give worms a thumbs up for managing to survive, for being so resilient, the resilient creatures that they are. I think it's amazing. I think it's absolutely amazing. All right, guys, again, thank you for watching this video. If you're still with me at this point in the video, please leave me a comment below to say, I watched the whole video. That will thrill me. If I don't see the comment, then I know it didn't happen, and that's okay too, because long videos can get boring. Thank you to those who are continuing to be subscribers and continue to support me even though I had an extended absence. Hopefully that won't happen again. And what I plan to do is to give these all a good watering, and then I'm going to do a baiting in one corner on each of them, because obviously all of them are ready for harvest. And I'm going to have to restart all the bins. So, since I am resetting them all, if there is a video of a certain topic, a certain discussion, a certain food type, a certain method, a experiment, anything that you want to see me do, let me know. Drop me a comment, leave feedback, communicate with me. I will do it, because this is the time to do it. I have to reset all these bins and there's no reason that I can't do something now. My plans right now is to give them all water, give them all a hunk of food in one end, and once I do that, I'm going to give them 2 or 3 days. They don't need more than that, and I'm going to do a follow-up video. It's probably going to be just as long. I want to show you how quickly worms can bounce back. While I haven't ever had them go this long before, I do know that no matter how far they have deteriorated, regardless of the cause, they bounce back rapidly when their needs are met. And you're going to see that. So that will be the next video that I have planned to do. Probably 3 days, I would say. It doesn't need longer than that. But if you have something certain you want to see me do, I will do it. As for the African night crawlers, they are still in the urban worm bag, and it is actually outside. And I have to check on that. I'm confident that some are alive. I doubt they all are alive, because right now, for instance, today, it's going to be 104 degrees out, and we have a heat index of 130 degrees, and the worms are in the sun. But they're African night crawlers, so they're going to not only survive, but they're going to be okay, and they can go deep. And if they're not alive, I'll let you know. But again, thank you guys. Please give 2 thumbs up. 1 for me, 1 for the worms, and healing positive vibes my way. I can take all that you can give. If you're someone who believes in the power of prayer, that can't hurt either. I'm not a religious person, but I respect it, and I value the religious preferences and choices of anyone. And if that is your method of caring, then I gracefully accept that. So thanks, guys. Thank you very much. And you'll see a follow-up video very, very soon. Take care.